But back to the UK now. While we were on the subject of rave rap in the UK mixtape era, we kind of want to be more macro again by talking about the scene in general. Back in the day, we had a lot of ways in which artists basically cultivated their skills. You had Lord of the Decks, you had Lord of the Mics, and even today you do have all these freestyle platforms. Find the Booth. You have Daily Duppy. You have all of these kind of platforms. Fumes, the engineer plugged in. You have all these platforms in which artists can kind of sharpen their steel and grow as far as like their bars, artistically, all that kind of stuff. But there has been an ongoing discussion, mainly on Twitter, about whether the UK is lacking in artist development, especially in this kind of like online social media era where you can drop a viral tune, it goes viral, and then you have a 6-figure deal with a label, and you don't even know how to perform live. You know what I mean? You don't know how to entertain the crowd. So, with that, is it something that is a problem in the UK as far as there not being that many avenues that allow for artists to cultivate their skills? Basically.
100%.
Is it a UK problem or is it just a music problem right now? Because, like you said, Ice Spice it was just for Ice Spice.
It's a music problem, but we're doing it in specifically about the UK.
I just feel like it's an art. I think the way social media has now taken music, I don't think it's a UK problem. I just think it's a universal music problem because of how easy it is for someone to go on TikTok, make a viral song, get signed, go perform it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. But what makes you think the artist isn't being cultivated, or they're not cultivating their art, even though those are the forums in which they're going about to get to pop?
I think the problem is that if you have in more often cases than not, you have somebody like an Ice Spice who typically comes out with one song because of the way the world is right now. TikTok explodes. The record label hurries to get everything sorted out so they can push something out quickly to take advantage of that momentum. And then typically they fall off a cliff after that because they don't have like a follow-up or a follow-up or a follow-up. So, yes, artist development is completely dead because it is now a rushed process as opposed to back in the day when it was A&R, I see the talent, let's talk about what your vision is, what are you comfortable with, how we see you doing it. Like, we're going to hook you up with this person, this stylist, we're going to get you on that feature. It was a process. Like back in the day, artists didn't just come out. They didn't, right? There was a process that we didn't see that was happening in the background. Artist development is kind of dead now. Back in the day, like, you're talking about like sharpening steel and that, like Delight FM, like So Solid and all these people, you'd hear them on Sundays or whatever, just like making mistakes, but just like going back to back and barring and so on and so forth. Deja vu, etc., etc. We don't really have that anymore. And I know you mentioned like the freestyle places as well, but like a lot of the time that's pretty orchestrated by the labels, or so you're taking advantage of like industry connects that you've got. It's not accessible to all. Shout out Jamal Edwards. That's why SBTV was amazing, because for the most part, I knew people who didn't blow, who got an SBTV, F64, whatever it may be, right? But the avenues now 100% have shrunk. Like, you can't even make, I said before, like, you can't even make like mixtapes on like a track, a fire freestyle on someone's beat anymore. Right? Without getting a bang on the door on your SoundCloud or on your YouTube from Universal Music Group saying they've done the technological scanning of the music. Sounds like you're using one of our beats. That has to come down. So everything has to be like a polished, finished product now. Which means that artists actually don't have a great deal of opportunity to make mistakes and build.
That's it. You have to be the finished article these days. Yeah. Even when you are someone who makes a bop in your bedroom, it goes viral and you get a deal. By you signing that deal and by your song going viral, you're basically seen as a finished article that doesn't need any other type of development.
100%.
And it shows in the music. They always want you to try and recreate that thing that got you signed in the first place with no real artistic development to speak of.
Yeah.
A&Rs these days will literally tweet, send me links to music, let me check it out. And that's their way of kind of discovering, you know, the diamonds in the rough. Yeah. Rather than back in the day when it was a little bit more, I don't want to say sophisticated, but it was a different method in which they found artists. So to that point, artist development is very much lacking. Even when you go to like stuff like gigs and you see the artist not really entertaining the crowd.
They don't know what they're doing half of the time.
They don't know what they're doing half the time. That aspect of the game is foreign to them. Like they don't know what to do. So it's very much different from back in the day when, you know, even when you were releasing music and you're getting a buzz and you're getting bigger, it felt like you were literally developing and you were becoming more well-rounded. Whereas now, if you have the viral hit and the virality, that's really and truly the only marker.
But how do you man like categorize like being developed though? Because if you say you make a song, you send it to a label, they sign you, they release the song, but it's not part of an album. Even if there's a big buzz around a song that's dropped and you're getting all this acclaim and all this like popularity in that, if the album doesn't come until maybe 2-3 years later, isn't that period between when that song has come out and blown and the album coming out, isn't that the development period?
But I don't think the record labels care to develop artists though.
And they never
But
really
don't
wait
you think
that
that's
long.
what's going on when
And
the album? Because Meg, for instance, how long between Hot Girl Summer and the first and the album did it come out?
But she went for an issue with a record label.
Yeah,
And
and
she's
I
talking
actually,
projects
and
as
I
well.
actually think she's the antithesis to what we're talking about because I actually do think Megan was developed.
Yeah, I was going to say that as well. Yeah, I think she's gone.
And I think that shows in the level of star that she has reached, and the Grammys that she's won that she didn't deserve, and all of the other stuff. No, I mean she's never made anything of real significant quality, but she's a product.
God.
No, she hasn't. Like for me, anyway.
No, that's true.
That's my
It's true.
opinion.
It's true.
Her
I
stuff
agree.
isn't great. Like I remember her song "Big Old Freak," and I liked how she was rapping on that and what she was saying, but like. It kind of went off a cliff after that, but you can tell that there's money behind her.
Yeah,
They're
there's a
giving
thought
her
process.
time. They're giving her space. Nothing really feels like this is going to be the last time you're going to hear her. Whereas in the case of, I know we're talking about her a lot, and this is no diss to her because what Ice Spice is like 21. I'm not trying to shit on somebody who's like very very new, but like you can tell. First track sounds second track sounds exactly like the first track. Everything seems very rushed out. I felt for the girl when she went on to her first festival
Was it
gig.
Rolling Loud?
Yeah, and
she
was
butchered
getting,
it.
Yeah, she was getting
butchered
eaten
it.
alive because she couldn't really perform.
was out
And
of
it's just
sync.
like it doesn't even look like they got her in like a room like this in front of a mirror. Just like doesn't even look like they got her
It was
doing
literally
that.
just rush, go on stage.
You know, they even got her on the treadmill doing like just running, just so she can get her breath control. It doesn't look like any of it took place. And before you know it, won't be 2 years before Ice Spice has an album. It'll be soon. It'll be New Year
Or a mixtape of any kind.
or a
Just
mixtape
something.
of some kind.
Yeah, just something.
And that is less to do with wanting her to be this future superstar. It's more to do with the fact that she's got a buzz and they want to monetize it quick.
That's what they're on. They want to milk
and then
it.
she'll be gone.
I feel like we do it differently here. I feel like it takes longer for albums to come than in the US. So it seems like even though we're, I think across the whole culture, maybe there isn't enough time. There's maybe not enough artists even being developed within a significant amount of time. I think particularly here, it still seems like we're still doing it a bit more.
I think here there's
Would you
certain
not
artists
say
that
so?
It depends. I think of Hardy Caprio. Hardy Caprio has basically been like just the label situation. He's been making music, giving it to the label, and they've been saying no because it hasn't been a certain thing. Hasn't been what's made him pop previously.
Isn't
So
that
while
part of
he's-
the development though?
No, because he's trying to develop, but they're not allowing him.
there's
to,
no
basically.
there's no
So
they're
it's
not giving them
necessar-
nothing back.
Yeah, it's not necessarily the artist's fault, but it's more the structure around it that means that we spent all this money on you. We plan to make it back.
Yeah.
You need to do this in order to do it.
But the worst part is they're saying go and figure it out.
Like we're not helping you here. But then if you look at
which isn't
Central,
artist
that's not
development.
but then if you look at Central C, is
Yeah.
that development to you?
Yeah, because he's like Meg in the
Yeah,
sense that
that's
there is a litany of
But then
power
is the difference
and influence
Is the
behind
difference?
him.
So I don't mean to cut you off.
Yeah.
But is the difference then not getting a record label involved?
There's a
Century's-
record label behind Century.
From what I heard, Central is fully independent.
But then the conversation around
what I've
development
heard.
doesn't even happen without a
Hey,
label.
Mo,
Then.
What do you think?
He just signed with Sony Publishing.
You think he wasn't there before at this time?
No, he definitely was.
Oh, so
Listen,
he
you just
did-
have to check. You just have to check the YouTube thumbnails.
Ah, in that case,
Dog.
You just have to
they
check
sold
that.
me a dream. They sold me a dream.
Bro, that's
They
but
sold
that's
me
what
a
they
dream.
do. Like, and you know, I don't want to bring up my man again, but like some of the biggest artists have. I don't want to mention his name in there. I'm a little bit more close to
Stormzy.
I mean, that was his. That was Mo. That was Mo.
Oh, we know about that though.
I'm not gonna say that, but like, yeah, the new, I guess, flex in rap is the independent
Unsigned, yeah.
hustle. That's the new brag, innit? And the reality is that like, you can't be as big as Central C, like out of nowhere, really, relatively speaking, like, and not have something behind you.
That's fair.
But he is doing it the right way. He is getting developed because he's dropping songs, he's dropping projects, and even if he is affiliated with a label or not, he's very much focused on the music rather than anything around it, sort of thing. He's very much like on the music versus someone who might have the virality, might sign a deal, might not necessarily be as invested in the music and still having a certain status sort of thing. But
Sorry, go on.
no, go.
I don't know how you develop without a label. How do you like? To me, when I think of like an artist developing, actually no, you probably can, but I guess when I think about an artist developing, I think it's just taking their time with their craft, making mistakes, figuring out what flows work, what sound works, what is their sound, type of artist they want to be. I think that's part of the development as well as performing in front of a mirror,
let me ask you something.
figuring out.
So
you
let
know
me
what
ask
I
you
mean?
something. So let me just
Yeah, go on.
So can't you do that better without having a record label? Because a record label is gonna push you.
You
to
need.
sort
I
it
think
out
you
ASAP.
need someone outside of yourself to be able to help you with the measuring stick of what you're trying to do, because
But-
you can't judge. How do you judge yourself?
No, but 1,000%. But say you're a record label and you've got an artist who's gone clear on TikTok and just made a song that's viral. If you're a record label, now you're gonna sign that artist, push that single, give me another one, 3 months down the line, you're done. Whereas if you don't sign, that's when you could take care of your art. I think record labels are killing
Artist
the
development.
actual
And I
artist
thought that's what this topic
more
was
than
about,
the
right? Like,
more than the independent route. I think the record labels have destroyed it because to them it's we're chasing a quick buck.
Listen, there
You
have
make a
been
viral
ways.
single, blow.
So are you saying the only way to ensure that you continue to develop is to not sign?
I'm not saying don't sign because everyone needs to sign eventually
Yeah.
to someone, but I think the more you rush your sign is the more you'll fall off.
But how
If
do you measure rushing it though? Because if you've been grinding and making your art for like 2-3 years, you might feel like, you know what, I'm developed.
hear you,
but that could be a
but-
rush thing though still.
I hear you.
yeah,
just-
it's a hard thing.
But you
for
know when someone
artists.
rushes
Well,
it.
look
You know when
at-
someone. You know
artists
when.
aren't always
take an
honest with
example. Let's take an
themselves.
example. Dizzy Rascal, right? He signed to XL. He was 18. He dropped Boy in the Corner. We now see it as a classic. Before that, he was doing sets. He was doing radio.
Big
he was
time.
doing sidewinders. He was doing Eskimo dances. That was a kind of development because he was working on the live aspect. He was making beats. He was working on the music aspect. He was writing bars. So there are ways in which to do it, and we can see from how he transitioned to become like the first grime superstar that he was developed. So there are ways to do it, and it doesn't always mean that a label doesn't have to be involved. I just think the times are different. I think now labels are more so concerned about what's going to pop versus, you know, an actual artist having the freedom and having the time to build themselves. So I think priorities might have changed.
I think labels ultimately just want to get away with doing the very least at any given time. So if you were XL back in the day, like having a fully ready Dizzy Rascal would have been like literal gold dropping into your hands, right? Like every now and again you have an artist who's just so stratospherically better than everyone that the artist development piece isn't actually needed. But when he got signed and he released 2 albums which he already had ready, like he had them tucked, right? The artist development with Dizzy came after because he made a pivot towards stuff that was a little bit more commercial, and you know that's when he got his money right. Because for as much as those first 2 albums were like successes to us, and he got like the critical acclaim, these albums didn't make him like untold wealth. Is when he did Bonkers, is when he did Dance With Me with Calvin Harris and went to #1, right? So the artist development definitely happened with him because he had already earned it. But he's different because he came to them as an unbelievable talent that nobody could deny. The problem is that a lot of artists aren't necessarily being like super honest with themselves. Like an Ice Spice getting signed, or you know whatever her situation is, if she is signed and looks at that as a result of her talent versus a result of her TikTok virality, then we have an issue. Artists need to kind of be honest with themselves, and if they go down the route of thinking that it's for reasons that aren't what they are, that's when it can be a bit tricky. But ultimately, record labels are going to try and get away with as little as possible, especially today. And there's so many opportunities to do that with TikTok artists now.
Yeah, because it does the hard work for them,
Just that
Yeah.
simple.
basically.
Yeah.
So-
Artists are doing all of the work still.
I mean, it still sounds like some labels still care about the development. Because when we had Sean here, like she spoke about it as well. She spoke about like having certain artists and, you know, allowing them to take their time with their art and the label actually helping them with that. So there are still some labels that help.
Who
but
are those artists? I can't remember who she mentioned because I think she mentioned some pretty big ones. And again, it kind of goes back to what I'm saying. If you have a view in your mind that the artist in question has it, then of course the investment's going to come. But unfortunately, like each record label right now doesn't have like 10s and 20 in terms of amazing artists on their roster. They've got like 1 or 2 who are keeping the lights on, and the others just like single churn, album churn.
It's a
conveyor belt.
it's literally that's what it is.
100%.
And I also think it depends on your worldview. I think relative to Cyan, who has kind of been like a radio host, she's kind of seen a lot of the scene and a lot of the big players in the scene now develop to become what they are. She values artist development more than someone who might not necessarily have been in that world. So I think it's relative to the person and it's relative to the companies involved as well. If you're someone who is a music fan, has a job as an A&R, doesn't really know how to get their foot into the door, they tweet, you know, let me get new music, blah, 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 and they go that avenue, they might not necessarily have as much of an appreciation for the journey as they would the destination. So I think it depends.
So do you think the game is lacking without like the pirate radios and I guess the more forums for more artist cultivation?
Yeah, because the one thing that the pirate radio did and the mixtape circuit did and all of that stuff that, you know, I guess New York in some respects popularized a lot with a lot of their DVDs and stuff, is it allowed you to have a very, very different, more intimate view on who the artist is. So if anything, the fan base that you were cultivating on radio and on these DVD things acted as your main sort of defense against the labels. Do you know what I mean?
Because
I've got this. This is working. Look at my views on these radio stations and on these YouTubes. But then, how are you going to tell me to make a commercial song when this is what's popping for me here? So it gave artists who were being pushed down the potentially a commercial route a defense.
Yeah, but this is the problem. If the same way you said it, their currency was the fans for pirate radio. The currency today is TikTok videos. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is it?
That's the currency today. That's how people get signed.
100%, bro.
If they're TikTok, bro, if you're TikTok,
Not for all artists.
Not for all artists
in the world now
but
complaining
now
about the fact that the record labels are putting these obligations on them to like
have to blow
TikTok content.
So now
you
it's
could
a
be like
case
Florence and the Machine, and
Yeah.
they're saying to her, "Can you make a TikTok, please?"
Ballsy.
That's
So, do you get what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
now, whereas with the pirate radio, with the pirate days, it would have been my fans are this. Now it's I'm getting 60 mil views on this one song from TikTok alone. That's now the currency. That's how people. So I think with pirate radio, I don't know if it can ever come back because of the way everyone's attention span is set up today. And I think it's just going to get.
And radios are dead for
exactly that. It's only going to get worse before it gets better in terms of that.
Unless they bring radio to TikTok and Instagram, like just a little button, radio, bang.
But then who's going to listen to it?
That.
People's attention span's always going to.
If I could tap into like freestyles from Skepta and the like,
I agree
on
with you,
Instagram
but
or
I'm
TikTok.
saying-
I'm not on TikTok, but like, if they could bring it back. They just
Yeah.
need to make radio palatable for the newer generation.
Yeah, that's a fact. But I think that's what. Just to answer. I think that's a problem.
They definitely need more. They need more avenues. Like artists on labels today are like massively limited on what they can do. Like, and ultimately that kills the art because artists want to be free. Do you know what I mean? They want to collaborate with as many people as they want. They want to probably release more stuff than we see. They want to make more mistakes. As much as they say that they don't like the criticism associated with like bad 16s or bad collabs, whatever, like artists fundamentally just want to try shit out. But the limitations that are put on them by the labels in terms of like contractual obligations and the fact that these same labels won't even let them like drop a Hot 32 on like a Pusha T beat because it's not Pusha T on it. It's difficult. Like what really can you do? All you can do is like dances on TikTok. And what's that telling the fans about your art? Not a lot. It's tough, man.
It's tough. When the biggest artist in the world's doing it, everyone else will follow.
So yes, to your point, like I get kind of where you were going. Like, is the development piece of it solely on the labels? No, not necessarily. Like artists go through development on their own, but I think the ones who are signed by labels are owed artist development by the labels, unless of course they go to the label as this absolute finished article with a
I think it's what you
product
said,
which
though,
just
Rich.
pops.
I think you said it down to a T. I think artists got to be realistic with themselves and know why they got signed.
Yeah,
I think that's all it comes down to a T. I think if you know you got signed without trying to be rude based off your talent, then you know where you're trying to head towards.
Yeah.
But if you got signed based off your TikTok,
then you can't expect.
Then
like,
you can't expect anything from that person. Respectfully, you can't. Do you know what I mean? So
100%.
I think it's what you said, bro.
Yeah.
It's interesting because we're talking about there not being enough, I guess, forums for artist development and that. But at the same time, man, like there's a lot more opportunities for artists to come through and be signed or to
Based on what?
be
On TikTok?
placed to have a platform where they can share their music with more people. So I get what you man are saying in that, but there's still a positive aspect to the way the landscape is as well.
Yeah, that comes with the scene just getting bigger and, it just there being more of an attention placed on the music and the scene and the music coming out of the scene. I think it's a byproduct of that rather than any kind of artist development. I hear what you're saying though. There's definitely a positive, more people getting signed, more people are in the light and stuff. But again, like, you do have to be in a certain position to even get to that point, sort of thing. Whereas before, you could mess up, you could practice, you could do all that, and you know, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, then you carry on, innit?
Yeah, and there's also first movers advantage. And what I mean by that is like when we shifted towards like Bearshare, Kazaa, LimeWire, and that, and it was this new thing for everybody. We had one person, one artist who was ahead of everybody, and as a result, forged a massively successful career over it. Soulja Boy, right? But then everybody got on the internet. Would Soulja Boy be successful today? Probably not.
No, because it's the norm now.
Because it's the norm. So yes, it's easier to bring your product to market today. There are way more avenues. You can upload a video on YouTube quicker than ever before, etc., etc. But everybody's doing that.
It's oversaturated, man. You can't control it.
Yeah.
I think we're at the peakness of whack shit getting released. Because you can't control it. Like, honestly,
100%.
It's about to be a tsunami of terrible music
Yeah.
for the next however many years, man. And
And they're shorter tracks. They're all
say?
minute and a half long as well.
yeah, like, don't get me wrong, it's the goodness is always going to be there. But we're going to have a tsunami of trash.
You know what tsunami means?
Yes, and that's what we're going to have.
Bloody hell.
You watch Black Panther, right? You watch Black
Big
Panther,
up
right?
Neymar, man.
You know Neymar when he just came to Wakanda.
Okay.
That's why it's
How did we? How did this
Kukulkan.
happen?
Kukulkan, yeah. When Kukulkan came to Wakanda, that's what we're about to have
He
in
flooded
music.
that thing, man.
Yo, he flooded it. Like,
Spoiler
fam.
alert.
No one would have been impressed by the way he got flooded. God damn.
Spoiler, as if we're listening, bro.
You see what I'm saying?
Some people might be listening. They might actually still
Not a
going to watch
spoiler
it.
if you're not going to watch it.
Yeah, but my point is the tsunami that they saw in Wakanda forever is the same tsunami. You can't control it. We actually can't control the music that we're getting.
So you man are linking like artist development to this new internet age that isn't really new anymore.
There's no time
And
for...
essentially what you man are telling me is that like we're worse off.
Yeah.
The whole industry is
Oh,
worse
the music
off.
industry is...
We're going to
it's-
shit. Basically,
Yo,
you're telling me
the
we're going
music,
to
you not hear me
the
say
music
tsunami?
industry is worse than it's ever been.
Yeah, it's going to be...
But
It's
there's
gonna,
still a lot of quality music,
no, but
bro.
the poorness is going
No,
to...
the mechanics of
Yeah.
it.
The
Okay.
mechanics
Okay.
of it,
Okay,
and
okay,
I mean,
fine.
the music.
Mechanics,
But I mean, even in music terms, it's not as good as it was.
And you need to look at the record label's perspective. If they sign someone based on a certain amount of views, they need to put that person back in front of your face within 2-3 months. Because say if Ice Spice gets signed and then you don't hear from Ice Spice a year later, you're naturally going to forget. The record label has to maximize
They're
on Ice
already
Spice.
calling her
whatever.
a one-hit wonder, dog.
Do you get what I'm saying? But as in, you still see her in your front of your
She
face.
didn't even have one hit.
I still don't know what her song was. I promise you. I've seen it on TikTok, but I
thought
don't
it
know
was
what her
Feeling
song
You?
is. Yeah, I remember you done it, but I've never. You know, even I still haven't listened to it.
Neither
I
have I.
can't do it.
It's only like a minute long, fam.
It's too
I
fast.
can't listen to it. I'm sorry.
I find it too fast. It's very frantic.
And
yeah.
she's always got the same promo game. If you look actually deep,
What,
Ice Spice promo game, it's the
just
same
showing
promo
Niash?
game.
Just
Just
being,
Wallahi,
just
bro,
being
it's a
sexy.
song, Niash, let's move.
It works.
It does work.
Don't look at me in my eye when you say that.
But on that note, yeah, the mechanics of the industry are worse,
Yeah.
and the fact that the internet, TikTok, and all that has allowed certain artists that maybe wouldn't have got the opportunity had there not been a TikTok or internet, are now like the biggest names in the game right now. Says a lot about where we're at, for sure. And as a result, artist development isn't as much of a pressing issue to a lot of people.
Yeah, these artists need artist development. They need therapy and better contracts. That's the holy trinity,
It's a
For
fact.
real,
honestly.
Yeah, man.
big facts.
Because, and look, there is a positive side because more and more we're seeing that artists are using rap as a bit of a stepping stone. So that's positive in the sense of they are in it for a reason and they're not going to allow themselves to be screwed by a label long term. But that also has
That plays a
long
factor.
term effects on music's quality over time. So as fans, to Mo's point, it's going to get very, very techie because, we're going to have derivatives of Ice Spice music soon and derivatives of that derivative and things are going to get very, very low quality.
Tsunami.
But I just hope it all somehow leads to the power just moving away from the labels. Like we need to bring back a way of direct to artist purchasing and whatever we can do because
It's not gonna get
we
good.
shouldn't be beholden to labels like this anymore. They don't care about you fundamentally.
Put your show on Bandcamp.
Big
Keep it
facts.
One day at
Big
band camp.
facts.
Sorry.
Yeah, I always say to people, I always say to people, it's okay to have like your Spotify's or whatever, your titles, whatever, but like, just spend that £10. We know that when you download it to your computer, you're probably not gonna upload it to your iTunes, right? It's just gonna sit on your hard drive, but you've bought it, right? If you want to go stream it, because that's part of your day-to-day workflow. That is fine, but just buy it. Buy it if you like that artist. It means everything. Having said that, I still need to put all 5 of them soul albums on my phone because I still ain't listened to that shit.
Bro.
I've got them on my phone.
Sure.
I still need to do that.
I would appreciate them putting that on Bandcamp.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie.
One day at Bandcamp.
Yeah.
It's gonna be stuck in my head.
different. It's different. But listen, man.
Salute to everyone.
Salute to the scene.
Hey man, if you make whack music,
Salute to you too.
congratulations.
You
Joking.
too. Oh yeah.
If you make whack music.
That was a great double entendre though, because you two make whack music as well.
And they forced it on us. and they put
It's
it in
a
our
beautiful
phone.
day.
And they put it
Was
in
that
their
them?
face.
15 years
The
later.
I
ITV
don't know how
Premier
we
League
allowed
guys.
them to get
Swear
that off,
down.
bro.
Fam.
How were they allowed to get that off,
I
man?
didn't even know that was you two all this time.
Trust me.
Yo, Bono
It's
had
a
Steve Jobs in his
beautiful-
pocket, bruv. Like,
It's mad, isn't it?
yeah, 100%. That's how we got that done.
Racism. What? I don't see the correlation, man. I won't lie to you. Yeah,